All right, we're back, and today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped. From stocking stuffers to white elephants, Manscaped's products are at the top of every wish list. Grab some crop mops for your pops or the body buffer for the holiday lover. Bucci's now dialed in with Manscaped on ESPN, looking clean from head to toe, and you guys need to be too. Win this year's white elephant gift and help all men in your life go from eggnog to nice hog this December. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code WITHCG, WITHCG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code WITHCG. Don't forget to grab the perfect gift that will be the holidays' biggest hit this year with Manscaped. On to the episode, baby. Let's go. All right, we're back on the podcast, and I've been looking forward to this episode. He's a current play-by-play commentator and studio host for NHL and ESPN. He joined ESPN in 1996 and has been a major presence on its airwaves as a host of SportsCenter. And all I got to say is let's throw some chicken parm on it, baby. John Buccigross. Bucci, welcome on the podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on. How's things been, man? How you doing?
It's been great. Year two of the NHL at ESPN, it came at just the right time with me. Yeah, I'd been there 25 years. Sometimes when you're at one place for a long time, you're looking for, new challenges, new energies, new enthusiasms. And for the NHL to show up again 18 years after it left us, after 25 years at the company, that's just a second wind. You're really thankful that you get and can start to travel and do play-by-play, which has always been my dream. Still host some studio shows, get to meet new people like Mark Messier and Chris Chelios and Ryan Callahan, and now PK Subban's on board. So these guys become your friends and your teammates, and you have a lot of pride. And so it's I've been so lucky that I get this. And now year two, you learn from your first year mistakes or how you get better all the way around. So year two is off to a great start. We're about a month and a half in, calling some games, hosting the point, doing some intermission. So still doing the college stuff. Going to do a couple extra college hockey games, doing BU and BC this Friday night from Boston, which I'm really excited about. And got a Michigan State game in February, Frozen Fours in Tampa this year. I'll be at the All-Star game doing the skills competition again, just really cool job, fun job. And like I said, just grateful it's all come about.
Yeah, you're crushing it, man. You seem to be having fun doing it.
Always.
Yeah. We're going to get right into that chapter of yours, the present chapter of yours. But I want to quickly cover the SportsCenter and ESPN side. You've been with ESPN since '96, a long time. You know, when you think of SportsCenter, you think of you, Bucci. What did it take to get there, man, to get to where you wanted to be on SportsCenter and all that?
I think it starts when you're 12 years old and 13 years old, and you see Chris Berman do SportsCenter for the first time when you're in freshman in high school, and you say, "Wow, that looks really cool." He's talking about music, and he's talking about history and a little bit of pop culture, and he's having a great time. And I'm like, I kind of looked at that and say, that's what I want to do. And I watch local news all the time, and I always watch the national broadcast of the NFL and NBA, and I was always into that too. And that was mainly the game and play-by-play. There wasn't a lot of studio stuff when I was a kid. So that kind of appeared when ESPN appeared. Outside of the pregame NFL, which I grew up with as well on the big three networks, NBC and ABC and CBS. There was no Fox when I was a kid. That was the first dream and seeing things like that. But to see Berman, and then my parents gave me a tape recorder, and I would turn the sound down on the TV and pretend I was broadcasting. And then they gave me another tape recorder for Christmas one year, and I could play music in that one and be a DJ in the other tape recorder, and then just create things. I once created a 9-inning pretend baseball game using sound effects and crowd noise. It was during the strike year of 1981. I was 15. So there was no baseball in the summer of 81. And so I just kind of created. So then and really looking back way after the fact, I realized that I was into production. I was into creating things. It wasn't just broadcasting. I was into, television, not just sports. I watched the Tonight Show and David Letterman. Me and my next door neighbor once made a movie like with our home video camera. So I realized that, the stock answer was always just broadcasting, be a broadcaster, sports. And I played sports through high school and stuff. But I realized looking back now that, I really kind of had a thing for TV without really even knowing it. Like I said, making a movie, making a pretend baseball game, music and DJs. And so I picked a small school that I could be a disc jockey at the campus radio station, be an anchor at the campus TV station, and have a school newspaper I could write because I always loved to write. And so I picked a small school in Ohio. I got recruited to play basketball. I never heard of the place, but that's why I went and visited. And I was like, this will do. Visited one place, applied one place. I go, this is fine. It's small. They got all what I need. It's 3 hours from home, not too close, not too far. So it really does start a long time ago. And then I just always consumed sports. So I didn't have to worry about being qualified to talk about it because I understood the rules from playing and from my own curiosity. I understood the history of all the sports. I read books all the time growing up just because that's what I enjoyed doing. And so I created this big database of knowledge and information just from my own passion. So that's always the best way to achieve anything, is just because you just love to do it and you would do it anyway. And so then you graduate in college, you just look for that first job, and that can take a while. It took me about a year to look for, to really find something that was even working for free at night, just kind of donating my time. And then you find out about a place across town, go ahead, go over there, and you apply. And then your first job is a news cameraman at night with the news reporter, with the night news reporter. And you can fill in doing sports. And that's what I did for 8 months. And then the news and the sports anchor leaves, and you get his job at age 24 in 1990. And that's where it started. And so I got hired there, at that station, August of '89, as a nighttime news cameraman. And then also filled in for sports. So that was, again, that's August of '89. I'm 23 years old. Became the full-time guy in April of '90 when I'm 24 years old. And then I've never missed a week of work since then. I stayed there for 5.5 years, got a job in Providence, last day Friday in Cape Cod, first day Monday on Providence, worked there for 2 years, last day on a Friday, first day at ESPN the following Monday. So it's been straight through now for 33 years. I've been, again, that's lucky and blessed that I haven't missed a paycheck. And now I've been at ESPN now for 20. It just was 26 years, October 28th. So yeah, it just starts early, deciding what to be and go be it. The great line from Avett Brothers. You just decide what to be, then you go be it. I might look for my first job in a phone book out of college. That's how I got to the station down in Cape Cod, which is 30 minutes where I am now in Plymouth,
Yeah.
Massachusetts. So that's how it starts. And there's so many people, they contact me. Well, the most important thing is apply for the job. You can say you want to work at ESPN as a young production assistant, the first job in terms of, behind the scenes job. But you have to apply. You have to go apply and then apply again and then follow up. But some people don't even make that simple elementary step of actually applying for a job.
Right. No doubt. That's crazy. What a wild journey for you. And, I think the fascinating thing is that the behind the scenes day to day, like your routine, right? I mean, you have a new routine, I feel like kind of maybe now with, the NHL and all that, but what was your day like from start to finish, like anchoring SportsCenter? What would you do?
Yeah, well, if you're the 11 o'clock Sports Center, we used to come in and meet at about 3 o'clock, and then if we had the 1 a.m. Sports there, we'd meet at 6 o'clock and just kind of throw ideas around. And you might bring your own idea, like you might see there's a big game that night, and you want to do a lead in. Those lead ins is when we're on camera and there's something behind us, and we're kind of setting up the highlights, setting up the game. And we might find an angle we want to talk about, whether we can use our own creativity or our own cool little storyline to help set it up. We don't do as much of that, unfortunately, on SportsCenter. There's not as much writing, which always was for me, the enjoyable part, the challenge, especially when you're anchoring with someone like John Anderson, who's a great writer. You want to hold your own, come up with ideas and cool language and something either witty or smart or emotional. One of those things I always kind of drove for those things, either kind of make them laugh a little bit, make them think a little bit, make them feel a little bit. That's always, I try to stay in that lane as much as I could. Never trying to be funny, because we're not professional comedians. We're working 5 nights. It's hard to be funny, but just have fun. If you have fun, that'll translate. Try to be funny, that can fall flat. And I always try to stay away from scripts and scripted comedy when our producers wanted to try something funny. And I would listen. If it was something I thought I could pull off or throw something my own personality on, I would give it a shot. But if it's like we're trying to be funny here, it's like that's tough. Let's just have fun. And then that'll connect with the viewer. So yeah, that was the big challenge. You just get in, you and then you just start writing the show. I always did nighttime Sports Center for the most part. So you just watch games. You have to react to it. So it's hard to plan when you're a highlight show, because anything could happen. A no hitter could be thrown, and suddenly all your ideas are out the window. So yeah. So and then it's just basically obviously following sports, which, like I said earlier, I would have done anyway. You got to watch the games. You got to read books. You got to read biographies. You got to, pay attention, read magazines, stay current. And so that was always, that was always kind of the routine. It was something I would do anyway. That's why it came natural to me, and that's why I enjoyed it.
Right. Yeah. The prep is like one of the most fun things I think with it. And you did great because you were just yourself. That's all you want to be, right? I wanna bring up a segment I came across with you in the beginning. I think at the beginning of your career, there was a segment of you and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, right? And I mean, you've done one-on-ones with celebrities, athletes, throughout your whole career. In the beginning, in what moment did you feel like, damn, this is surreal? I'm here. I've made it. Which person did you interview and you're like, wow, this is it?
That's a good one. Yeah, The Rock actually happened pretty well into my career. That was when I got probably my biggest break at ESPN per se, outside of actually getting hired, and then thankfully getting a new contract, then another contract. Certainly they can say goodbye whenever they want when your contract ends. But thankfully they haven't done that yet. I'm sure we'll all get that call eventually, I imagine. But that was in 2009. I got moved to do the noon to 3 SportsCenter. That was the first time. ESPN didn't do live morning or afternoon stuff until like 08, 09. We just kept repeating the late SportsCenter till 1 a.m. People would watch it over and over again. Well, once the internet got going and internet video really got cranking in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, we realized that, man, we got to be a little more current. There's stuff breaking at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and we have this wheel of repeats from the night before, just highlights. We got to try to, and now, Twitter starts to happen and things are becoming more immediate. So that's when we realized we got to start going live at 9 a.m. or as early as we can. And so I got moved to the noon to 3 SportsCenter, and that was a great opportunity. First of all, I'm live 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. All the bosses are in work and the TV's on the desk anyway while they're doing their job, just as background noise. Or once in a while, they might look if something piques their interest. So I think they got to see me during that time. It was like, well, that guy's pretty good. He's pretty comfortable talking to The Rock. Vince Vaughn came in one time talking to him. Athletes coming in pushing things. Matt playing with catch with Matthew Stafford in the hallway, and comparing hand signs with Calvin Johnson and those big mitts that he has. All those. So I was able to really do, whether it's entertainment or sports. I was able and I've always, pretty early on, I got pretty comfortable around, famous people. I realized early on they're just normal people. They're not much different than you and me. They got some lucky breaks, whether genetics or whether other things, right place, right time, or especially if you're a Hollywood type of entertainer, those things are sometimes right place, right time. Obviously, they're gifted in other ways as well. So yeah, I was comfortable pretty early around them. Again, just to be myself, I think that gets respect from them and as well, and they're comfortable with you because they realize how comfortable I am with them.
Right. And I mean, you're great at making people feel comfortable, John. And I mean, you just being yourself, and everyone's equal. There's no one's any different than each other, right? So I want to transition into present time with what you're doing. You're now doing you're a play-by-play for ESPN with the NHL, and you're doing in studio stuff. How's this transition been? You kind of just jumped right into it, which is great, and you've done a hell of a job. Tell me about it. How's everything going? You're enjoying it more, I feel like, doing this.
We lost hockey in '04. So a couple years later, I went to ESPN and said, can I start doing some of these college hockey games, the regionals, the play-by-play? There's 4 regionals in college hockey. 16 teams make the tournament. And they're always nearby in Providence, Rhode Island, or Worcester, Massachusetts, or New Hampshire. So, they were close by. And my argument was, I can go do these games. I can drive the game. You don't have to hire anybody. Normally that they hire from the outside and pay them per game. I go, obviously I'd be free. It's just part of my contract. They're not paying me extra. You don't have to fly me. I can drive to the game. So that was kind of my reason. Give me a shot. And so I started doing those regionals. Again, that's only 3 games a year. And then after about 5 years doing that, I went to them. I think my contract negotiation was up, and I said, I'd like to be the voice of the Frozen Four. I like to put in my contract that I do the Frozen Four every year, the national championship games for college hockey. And they said, okay. So that really started to give me some reps. And then 2015, we got the World Cup of Hockey, which was interesting, right in the middle of the NBC NHL deal. They awarded the World Cup to us at ESPN. And they let me do play-by-play of that. I go, wow, this is awesome. I'm doing play-by-play of NHL players in Toronto, Team North America, that famous overtime goal by Nathan McKinnon against Sweden. They went up and down. I see it on Twitter every now and then. Broadcasting with Kevin Weeks and Darren Pang. It's kind of went, like viral. And then some of those national championship games in overtime, UMass winning the semifinal game in 2019. And so suddenly I started to kind of create, over time, a lot of college hockey resume material. And luckily, when we got the hockey package last year, ESPN is, letting me do play by play, but about 20, 25 a year. I'd like to do more, but, hopefully over time I will. But yeah, just to get the NHL back to focus on one sport during the hockey season, and then still be able to do some sports centers in the summer. That'll all, it's always get a kick out of that. So when I do it now, it's really special. I look forward to doing it. I'm a little nervous because I hadn't done it, for like a year. First time I did it last year was like, wow, this is the longest I've gone between sports centers, like almost a full year because once I do hockey, I'm all hockey. So that was pretty neat to do that again and just to get a taste of it in the summer. So yeah, right now it could not be better for me right now to focus on hockey during the hockey season, October to June, do some traveling, but not too much, call games, still have a touch at ESPN, going to the studio and doing some studio stuff. And then the summer, doing some sports centers. So yeah, it's probably, it couldn't be any better than it is right now.
It's a perfect thing for you. I think perfect timeline of things for you to do. You're a natural, man. I mean, literally, you went right into it and you've killed it so far, which I'm proud of you, man. You've done a hell of a job. I want to talk about like so far with the games you've done. Like, what are your top highlights so far that you witnessed and the arenas you've been to as well? What's been the most fun for you?
I'm pretty lucky. I had both Jack Eichel return games to Buffalo after that controversial trade and the surgery and how everything went down there in Buffalo. It didn't end well. So to be able to call last year's game and his first game back, it went great for Buffalo, not good for Jack. And then he gave us a great quote afterwards, and which kind of almost like a WWE moment where he'll build up the next game, which was this year. And there was plenty of build up for it. And once again, me and Ryan Callahan had the call on ESPN Plus, and then for Eichel to return and get a hat trick, and then to show up to the crowd and they're booing. It was just perfect. It was like a movie, and I could sense that. And so to be a part of that, that was like an event. There's 1,400 NHL games a year throughout the course of a regular season, and there's very few events. Winter Classic, a stadium series, and then something like this, an Eichel return game. So those are games you want to be a part of because there's so many regular season games. I still love every one. Everyone's like I won a contest to call an NHL game every time I get to call a game. I've only called 5 in my life. That's last year I got the call to do the opening night game in Las Vegas, part 2 of our doubleheader. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe they asked me. This is the first NHL game I've ever done in my life. It's on national TV. It's game 2, Seattle's first game ever. So I'm going to call the first Kraken goal in Kraken history. My voice is going to be on there forever.
Right.
And so ready. And luckily I nailed it. I saw Ryan Donato get it, and I was able to make the call. And then, so I was really happy that it's like, oh, this is my first game I've ever done. And, I'm so glad they let me do it. I was surprised, to tell you the truth. And so it's been going great.
Incredible, man. Yeah, I'd say like the Eichel game, and then you got Z doing the Michigan, like crazy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot the Trevor Zegras game. That's been like the most watched video in the history of the NHL. Like that, I think 10 million views on Instagram last year, from his alley-oop goal to Sonny Milano. And yeah, again, that call to be a part of history and have your voice on those calls forever. That's why I want to do more play-by-play. My life is where it's at now. The studio show has kind of lost a bit of its luster. It's more about
Yeah.
live and live events. And that's why I want to be at the arena. I want to call the games. I want to be a part of history, call people's first NHL goal. Like I called Quentin Byfield's last year, and, called San Jose Sharks' first goal as well. And I'm always ready. Like I always have on my charts in front of me, who hasn't scored a goal. So I go into a game because you can't miss that call. That call means so much to that player, to his family, and just for the craft. Like you got to be ready with that call, that first NHL goal call. So I always look, and I also look at their career totals before every game. Who has 399 goals? Who has 299 goals? Who has 298 goals in case they get two? Like you got to be ready for those moments. And I enjoy preparing in my charts, going through the stats on hockeyreference.com. I enjoy nerding out on that stuff as well.
That's great. I think any young player would want to be called by you. you know. It's funny because I'm actually friends with the play-by-play announcer for the Anaheim Ducks, and you had that night with Z's goal in Buffalo, and I told, I was like, out of all the fucking games, the season, Bucci takes it,
They're bummed when that happens. Yeah, and you talking about Johnny Allers, the TV guy,
Johnny
or?
Allers, correct? Yep.
Love Johnny. I've been on golf trips with Johnny. We played golf together and up in Oregon and Bandon Dunes, and a really good player. So yeah, I've enjoyed smoking cigars and hanging out with Johnny. So I'm sure those local guys are a bit upset when we come to town because our games are all exclusive and something like that happens. They're like, "Oh, I wish that was me." So I get it. Believe me, I understand.
Yeah, you deserved it though. I
Uh,
want to, yeah, I want to transition into a team now in the NHL that, you're a Bostonian. We got to talk about the Bruins here. They're a complete wagon right now, man. What the hell's going on? I mean, they look great. What's your thoughts on the Bruins right now? Your team?
Unbelievable. I grew up in Pennsylvania and Ohio, but my parents were born and raised in South Boston, Goodwill Hunting, South Boston. So, as a little kid, I'm on my dad's hip. My dad's a big sports fan, listening to Bruins games on the radio. We'd drive to Pittsburgh, a couple times a year when the Bruins came into town, and other teams too, but definitely the Bruins for sure. And they were a great team in the 70s when he was a young guy in his mid 30s and on top of his fandom. So he would watch and listen to everything. So I was right there. I always say if my dad was a crack dealer, I would have grown up being a crack dealer. But thank goodness he was a sports fan, so I grew up a sports fan. Some sons are going to do what their dad does. That's just the way it is. That's why you want to be obviously a good example. Thankfully, I had one. But so I grew up with the bees, and then once you start covering the league, you really start meeting people and players and coaches, and you become fans. People, so you lose your favorite team, kind of pull like that. It doesn't mean quite as much, but I still like to see the Bruins do well, and it is amazing how much they've come right out of the gate with a new coach. But they bring Krejci back, so that's an easy new guy to have because he understands. So, and then everybody's healthy and fluid, and just man, yeah, to be this in sync this early while everyone else is trying to find their footing with new players, with new coaches. So I think that's one reason why you can get off these amazing starts. Because if you are just for whatever reason, luck, coincidence, the right people at the right time, a new system, Jim Montgomery, just a little bit of flavor. The defensemen have a little more freedom, so they're kind of more engaged, and their energy level is going to be higher because they're having fun skating wherever they want to skate. He lets them be more aggressive than Bruce Cassidy. So yeah, it's perfect. Just for their standpoint, don't peak too early. The playoffs don't start for a long time. I'm sure they wish it was April now playing like this, but they still should be a major factor to roll out three lines, very well defined lines. So everybody has a role. It's Nick Foligno's on the fourth line, and that line is he is healthy and skating, so he knows what he has to do. And people like David Pastrnak playing for a contract. I mean, he's going to try hard anyway, but just that little extra motivation never hurts to have a guy playing for, the biggest contract he'll ever have in the league. So all that little extra focus and extra enthusiasm from each player, I think that's why you're seeing it all stack up to this amazing start. And I'm doing a game in Boston early March. I haven't done an NHL game in Boston. I've done two Frozen Four championship games in Boston. Did last year and in 2014 and 2015. But to call an NHL game in Boston, going back to as a little kid, listen to Boston games on the radio with my dad, listen to Bruins games, whether they're on the road or in Boston, the old Boston Garden, different arena. But still, that'll be kind of a neat sentimental moment to call a Bruins game on TV after thinking, way back when, being that little 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid listening to Bruins games on the radio.
That's going to be a special moment for you and your pops, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, again, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll keep it quiet. That's just that, but it will be a big deal. It will be a big deal for me.
Absolutely. I'm pretty surprised with how New Jersey's playing too. With
Yeah,
Boston, crazy.
yeah, I picked them to make the playoffs. They were a team last year whose goalies were so bad they should have been like a high 80-point team. So again, not a playoff team yet. So then this year, Jack Hughes a little bit better, Jesper Pratt the real deal, a little bit better. They add a couple defensemen. Doug Hamilton's going to be healthier, and then I'm thinking, okay, all those younger guys, one step older, and then they add a couple guys, and then just get a little better goaltending. Then maybe they can be on that 95-point team, 96-point team, when they should have been like an 88-point team. So that's not really a big leap to make if they should have been what they should have been last year. So that's how I looked at it. And so it's always fun to pick a couple teams no one expects, because then you can't lose, right? You're playing with house money, and then you can just ride that all year long. I told you, see, look how smart I am. I told you the Devils would make it. But again, I also thought Ottawa would make it. I picked Ottawa and New Jersey to make the playoffs because I feel two teams would jump in and a couple would jump. If Capitals got too old and they would be out. and then another team might be out. I should have probably had the Islanders in over Ottawa but I still think in the end Ottawa's going to be better in the second half. I do think they're still going to keep rising because the young players are getting better. They brought in Giroux, so they have, so they did some moves where I thought maybe they can make a jump. Again, that would have been a big jump for them to 96, 7 points, where that's probably the number this year. Last year was 8 100-point teams. That's not going to happen this year because all those teams are better. Buffalo's better, Detroit's better, Ottawa's better, the Devils are better. So all those numbers will spread out. So I think 95, 96 will be the number. I think obviously the Devils are in a great position because they built so much equity. Ottawa will have to really get going, but I still think in the end they will be a team that has a better second half and could at least scare that number.
Right, I agree with you. And I want to say, you said Goodwill Hunting, top three. He's in the top three for flicks. Love it.
Kinds of Son of a Woman, movies they don't make anymore, really. Son of a Woman, Goodwill Hunting, Dead Poet Society. That's kind of like right in my in my speed slot. The ones that I really like, campus-based movies I always liked. The gritty music, great soundtracks, which Goodwill Hunting obviously had. So those kinds of movies that we saw a lot of in the 90s, the early to late 90s. Unfortunately, because it costs so much money to make a movie and to promote a movie, and there's no more DVD sales, and to really make that big chunks, you can maybe lose a little bit of money after the theater, but then you make so much back on the back end. They don't have that. That's why we see a million Marvel movies and CGI and all that stuff, which is kind of sad. But but occasionally you see some good stuff out there, and yeah, Goodwill Hunting is definitely right there.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I want to bring up a moment before the season started real quick, and that's the NHL Media Tour in Vegas. And you had to sit down with some of the guys that are the top-notch talent in the league, and that's like, Zegras, Matthews, Barzell. How was it spend time with those guys? Who really stood out to you when you spent time with them?
Yeah, I really enjoy that. We did it last year in Chicago, and this year we did it in Las Vegas. They call it a Players Tour. And I just really, I kind of look at these guys like they're my third sons. I have two sons and who played hockey growing up and now are adults, young adults. And I look at these guys and that was the great part about doing college hockey, for not only just college hockey, but doing that for the last 16 years. And then being on social media and doing things like college hockey and the Bucci Overtime Challenge. I actually made a more connection with today's NHL player through social media than had we stayed on TV and kept the NHL deal all those years. If we had had it the whole time, I just don't think I would have made as big an impact in their eyes. So when they show up and they walk into the room and I'm sitting there, they all know who I am, especially the kids who play college hockey, not so much the Canadian junior kids. So I have this instant respect for them and almost like, well, I grew up with this guy on social media. And like I met Matt Barzell and he goes, I grew up playing the Bucci Overtime Challenge. Like, I don't know if that depresses me or makes me happy, but playing in the NHL as an adult. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while, but so it's just fun to have that credibility again coming back into the league. All these young guys know who I am, almost more than like the 30-year-olds. It's like it's an interesting gap, and so and I mean, Matthews DM'd me when he was 16. Can I get a Bucci Overtime Challenge T-shirt? Oh, sure, give me, because I knew who Austin Matthew was at that time. We knew he was going to be the first pick of the draft 2 years before he was drafted, and so yeah, give me your address. I'll send you a T-shirt, Austin, and so it's just to meet those guys and to be able to and also I like to read body language, get an idea of someone in person, size them up, how they walk, how they talk, what their expressions like, how they, just their posture, everything. So I really enjoy those moments, and that's been another part of the job where we talked about earlier. Just we go to the rink, we go to the morning skate the day of the game, and then we get to talk to the coaches one on one. So they'll meet the media, the general media, and then we get them being rights holders and being the national game. They come over and talk to us one-on-one. It's just a great way to know these guys. And a lot of them are like, wow, good to meet you in person. Because, again, they've been watching me for 15 years, but we had never met. Because, again, we haven't had hockey for 15, 16 years. So to meet the players and the coaches and the GM, been like older players who were like Sean Burke came up to me. I never met Sean Burke, but again, he's from the old NHL Tonight days and still in the league and still watches and probably has a social media account, even on his own, just to check news and read about things. And I'm on there a lot with hockey. And so it's been really cool. But yeah, I like talking to the players, meeting them in person, sizing them up, see what kind of, answers they give. And the same as we talked about before with The Rock or Vince Vaughn. I'll ask anything. I'm not intimidated, not afraid, but completely respectful and want them to succeed and want them to be comfortable. And so yeah, that's another fun thing, engaging with the young players. Because again, like I said, they're like my third sons. I want them to be comfortable I want them to succeed. I want to help them with any way I can.
Right. And it's cool that they kind of look up to you, and you learn about that when you first meet them. I love that, man. And it's like it feels good to see that.
You can see the look in people's eyes when they're excited to see. It's like, wow, Bucci, how you doing? You get a big hug. Jake Austin there too, and I never really met him. I've met Austin Matthews a couple times, and we exchanged DMs once in a while. Like I had a turtleneck on SportsCenter one night, and he club turtleneck, because he was wearing one at the time, and I said, I'm going to wear one on SportsCenter. I bet that's the first turtleneck in SportsCenter history. I'm going to make history tonight, and so that's fun when you can have that little back and forth with players. And Jack Eichel, the same thing. I think we got a lot out of Jack Eichel after his game in Buffalo this year, just because he's comfortable with me, and he'll say my name, and you can ask him stuff. Come on, Jack, let's go, and you can kind of goad him on because you have a relationship and they trust you.
No doubt. That's great. And and like I said, you're building relationships and connections with these guys, and you're going to be friends, for life almost, right? Going down the road.
Right. They know I love the sport. They know I want them to do well, and I'm a champion for the sport, and I want the sport to do well. And as they, I mean, life is short. Let's have a good time. Let's enjoy one another. Let's support one another, and let's just have a good time.
Right. No doubt. So coming down to the end of this episode, John, this is what you're doing. You told me, I love the timeline where you're doing hockey. You're going to do some sports center. You're going to mix it, the both in with each other. With this new chapter and all that, is this going to be like the only chapter you do going into the sunset, riding into the sunset?
I think it'd be, this is a 7-year deal. This is year 2. I have 3.5 years on my contract, so I'm good for 3.5. At that point, we'll have 2 years left on the TV deal, and so yeah, like I said, I like to do more and more play by play. The more I can do, the better. And then you can kind of live where you want to live, fly to games and fly home. I'm kind of all over the place right now a little bit, helping my parents out here in Massachusetts, driving 2.5 hours to Connecticut when I have studio stuff, and then fly into games from either Connecticut or Boston, wherever I am at the time, to get to the game. So it's kind of a little frenetic right now in terms of my own personal life and where I am. But again, working nights is great. I got all day to do what I love to do, and help out my parents, and go to the gym and play some golf when the weather's decent in the summertime. Not now, but just kind of craft your day how you want to, and then you watch games at night or work at night and prepare, and so yeah, so it's just a great rhythm, and I hope so. I have other ideas too. I still think I would like to have some sort of hockey content app. I think I could maybe make that work, podcasts and merchandise and video things and interviews and features and, short features like short films and stuff. And part of me would really like to get into that with like a Bucci overtime icon, and, people understand that brand, and maybe bring the Bucci OT challenge to the gambling aspect, like play 99 cents, and kind of have something right of a t-shirt or a hat, but keep it low cost and keep it fun and simple for people to play, which they seem to like. So yeah, I hope there's one more act there where I kind of can create something off of my Bucciot.com, apparel line, and then bring my, I wrote a hockey column for .com for 16 years, which I really enjoyed writing, kind of culminating with watching my son's last high school hockey game. If you Google Buccigross last game, that article comes up. I felt like I emptied the tank with that and had nothing left to give. So I haven't written in a while. Kind of like to maybe get back into that, and maybe a morning style, kind of a Zoom style show with like a couple other hockey people, in that Zoom 4 square quad box look, so they can do it from their house. Every morning you wake up and you have this little, 20-minute show or 10-minute show. You could even make it different lengths of what people would prefer if you could edit it quickly, and just every morning do a preview show, talk about the night before, talk about the night above, 5 days a week, maybe a quick guest every now and then, and just talking hockey, and have some of that immediacy where they can just click on an app every morning and do that. So that's something I have in the back of my mind, that if I get with whether I get with the right partner, I do it myself, or even through ESPN. So you have video rights, which is really important. I'd like to do something like that. Kind of like what Peyton Manning, the Omaha production, and what he does in that relationship. It's his own thing, but he's working with ESPN for video rights and for distribution. Obviously, the power of their distribution is great, but also kind of have your own thing at the same time. So if I could, I know I'm not Peyton Manning and don't have that kind of name, but I would like to create something like that, preferably with ESPN. But if they would let me do it independently, I think I could make it work.
I love it, man. I love it. And I love that you've taken on this new chapter. I'm happy for you. Okay. So in conclusion, go ahead.
kind of fell in my lap. So it wasn't much. I was there at ESPN. It came back, and luckily they agreed to let me do some stuff. So I owe it all to them. Right place, right time.
That's right. Well, in conclusion, I just want to say this. I can only remember and reminisce when I was a kid sitting in my living room watching you on SportsCenter, and now we're here. What a moment for us, you know? So I just want to say thank you for jumping on, man. I think you're a true inspiration and you're so good at what you do and you're just a great guy. You know, and that's what means the most to me is you're just a good dude, and you haven't aged at all, too. You keep getting younger each time I see you, man. What the hell's going on? So, anyway, thanks for jumping on, man. And hey, let me tell you one more thing. I'm a big chicken piccata guy, but the next time you're out in Cali, the chicken parm's on CG, baby.
Oh, let's go. I don't have any games, unfortunately, in Cali this year. I had one in Arizona, the first game at the Mullet, but yeah, unfortunately, no California games yet. Maybe a playoff game. So when I come out there, we are smashing some parm the size of my face.
That's right. I love it, baby. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on, and I'll talk to you soon. Stay in touch.
Anytime, brother. We'll do it again.
Thanks, brother.